I remember never forget my colleague who was the chief of cardiology at that time and hired me was like, man, Columbus, there must be something to the stuff you're saying. I don't know, but I guess there's something to it. And so the results become important and there's growing evidence. And so I began lecturing to them for that. But in terms of what patients perceive, I'm as opposed to other practices where it's solely wellness and lifestyle and people seek out the doctors because they know they're like, I need to go to this doctor because they're going to give me lifestyle. That wasn't my scenario. I was foraging for patients. I would say fishing, but I try not to say that anymore. For to get those who would be able to get engaged inside of the healthy lifestyle. So every patient was like a quick elevator pitch, a TED talk of me trying to get them on board what they wanted and trying to formulate things. And I struck out a lot of times. But the successes, the home runs I hit, it's like a golfer. I don't golf anymore, but I play golf a little bit, too busy for it. But you get that one stroke, it's addictive. You want to go back for more. That's what kept me going. Whenever I'd hear words of affirmation, the power of affirmation, the power of our words, it's so exceptionally important. But I still prescribe pills, I still do procedures because I tell individuals, it's your choice. My job is to present to you options. I want you to understand, are you going to take the red pill or the blue pill? All right. And so that's a matrix reference for those of you out there if you haven't seen that. But so the goal is we want to improve these markers of disease. We can do it through lifestyle or we can do it through medications and pills. The lifestyle has almost no risks associated except that you'll probably lose weight. That means you'll have to go out shopping, which means you're going to spend money and you may not want to do that, right? You're going to have improved energy. That means you're going to work more. You're going to love your family more. That's the side effect from this. You take the pills, there's a boatload of side effects you'll have to read on. Procedures, there's risks that are there. It may require in some patients a combination of both, but it's you after I pitch it to you, you have to decide which one you want. But we have to do something. And so oftentimes I'll put patients on an initial dose and say, if you're engaging, we're going to get you off these medications. Let's get you off these. That goal is to get you off these medications as you ramp up on your lifestyle. We're going to ramp down and hopefully eliminate some of the medications. If your lifestyle's down here, the medications go up and it's your choice because I deal with adults, which means my sentiment to every patient is I work for you. You are the CEO of your corporation, which is your body. My job is to advise you, but you're the president and CEO. You make the ultimate decision, and how your decision to proceed is in basis on how much I connect with you in terms of conveying the importance of this.
And after patients adopt some of these things and potentially see good results, what's the follow-up a year out, 2 years out? Are you doing, presumably you may have some people who are 15 years out. What percentage of people actually who see these positive results actually stick with it? Or do they feel like the reward for getting their health back is to go back to their old behavior?
A mixture of both, to be honest with you. I've had some who are fully engaged and they've made such phenomenal transformations that it's mind blowing. I've had some where I never actually saw them. I didn't learn about it until afterwards. Because I started putting on lectures called The Missing Link. And I started transitioning, developing cooking classes I did voluntarily after hours before the pandemic called the Cath Lab, which is where I take patients to do procedures. But this was called the cooking alternative to health, and we would demonstrate the power of it with the dietitian I brought on. So I would occasionally get patients who attended those, but weren't my personal patients. And I would see, and they said, Doc, I've been on this now for several years. I dropped weight. I'm off these meds. I'm feeling great. Thank you so much. And I tell them, don't thank me, thank yourself. I didn't do anything. You had to do all the work. I just planted the seed for you. And so I've seen that. I've also seen individuals where they're like, Doc, I should have listened to you. I should have listened to you. Or patients where it's like, yeah, I started and then I slipped up and then they're starting to have symptoms again. I know where I need to go and what I need to do and so forth. So I've seen the spectrum. And once again, I think seeing that spectrum over my career is one of the reasons why I've recognized why food alone in isolation is not the sole answer. It has to be supported by a support system that's there to increase the odds, that is, of success.
And is it the support system that made the difference between those that seemed to stick with it and were successful and those that struggled with it or maybe have stopped altogether? Or are there other things maybe in complement to a support system that also contributed to whether someone succeeded or failed?
Yeah, I think so. When I meant by support system, I meant the components of selfish. So, I mean, support system, yes, the community is extremely important. The mindset becomes important. But, if we get practical with things, because one of the things I tried to do was we speak a lot of times about the affordability of lifestyle. And there's been numerous studies that have come out kind of identifying the fact that, yes, indeed, you can eat healthfully in affordable fashion. And I tell patients that the more you go towards a processed or refined or quick and easy approach, the more expensive it is. Eating out, processed foods that are plant and sourced are going to be higher, but when you're having whole foods, those tend to be less expensive. But the point of it is that so when I did cooking classes called No Cooking class and identified individuals, I recognized that there were barriers inside the community for individuals, that their work was not conducive, that they were having to work the night shift, so their sleeping was thrown off and it was hard for them and they had to make ends meet. The fact of pressure of kids of that they couldn't make appointments and various things. And so I was an early adopter before the pandemic in my organization of doing virtual examinations. We would even use avenues where we can examine a person's heart and lungs and do video visits before this was even a thing, because I recognized it was so challenging for people to come into the office sometimes, and even the copay. Um, so, in other words, the community that a person lives in can play as equal potent a role in their health outcomes and in their adherence to a healthy lifestyle as anything else. I understand the impact of air and pollution on the endothelium and triggering the stress hormones. I understand the impact of the noise if you live close to highways or an airport that can trigger the stress hormone cascade and impact the endothelium. So I understand there's so multiple components, and I don't have the power or tools to be able to solve everything for everyone, but to bring to their recognition that here are some areas of barrier. And so, can you get away on the weekends? Can you do certain things of putting earplugs in and so forth? What can we do slowly to kind of improve your state of health overall and make it sustained? Because we understand, once again, going back to the sleep impairment, that when you don't get sleep, it's almost like being inebriated. Your alcohol levels are comparable, which means your judgment gets thrown off. That means that as you're making a decision about what you're going to choose, we all know it. We get the munchies late at night. We're more inclined to have bad food late at night the later we stay up. That's there. And so it's so multifactorial in terms of what ends up playing a role in the success of health outcomes, and just solely saying, eat real food, eat whole food, eat plant-rich food, I'm out. That doesn't work. It doesn't work for the average patient I've taken care of. Even if I do a retreat and they walk away out my retreat, they're going back to their environment they were in. I have to give them the tools that can increase the odds that can they be 5% better, 15%, 20%, 15% better than what they were before in an environment that may not be supportive for them. And can we create an ancillary or an adjunct environment that they can touch home, touch base, I'm safe, and then go back over to it.
So one of our participants is asking if your book is going to be available in ebook form or audio.
Yes, yes, and yes. So the audio is, it won't be available in audio at the immediate release, but we will be taping the audio version of the book in May. So I'm hopeful by summer that the audio book will be released on whichever platform, if it's Audible or Apple Books and so forth.
Great.
Ebook as well. We're looking at that.
And you may be familiar with Dr. Williams and his work, and he is fond of saying that one of his major goals is to make heart disease no longer the number one killer of cardiologists. How have you found your message resonating with your colleagues in cardiology? Are they seeing your results and starting to do it for themselves? Are they sharing it with their patients? What are you
Yeah.
seeing?
Yeah, so I'm seeing engagement and interest. I'm even seeing some who've adopted it. I had a colleague who's, she said, hey, she's exceptionally smart individual. She's like, hey, I'm doing it. My levels were high, cholesterol, and I'm doing your thing. I was like, well, it's not my thing, but I mean, I'll take that. I've had other colleagues who tried it. And I remember one colleague telling me, another interventional cardiologist, he said, man, Columbus, I know this is probably just in my head, but I feel like a level of clarity that's there now since I started doing this. And I was like, yeah, it is in your head and it is real. And as we kind of went through, and oftentimes what they'll do is they will refer them to me. They'll either ask me to go and talk to their patients. They'll give me some of the handouts that I provide to patients that's there. But, it's what one thing we have to realize, and what I would add to Dr. Williams' response is cardiologists are just like everyone else. The absence and lack of nutritional training means that they are not an expert in nutrition because they have not dedicated themselves to reviewing the literature in depth. And as a result, they're going to be beholden to every single thing that everyone else is. And that's what the studies have demonstrated, that stressful periods increase the rates of fast food and ultra processed food consumption in healthcare providers, including physicians and nurses, that we see that's there, that we're seeing that all these same perilous impacts are still happening on a regular basis. And so I don't look at them as this is their area of expertise and they should know better. I'm looking at them like they're going to be resistant like every other patient walking into my door because this is their culture, their family, cookbooks that have been passed on generationally, and they think it's okay to have a burger stand outside of a cardiovascular institute. That they think it's okay to have a potluck that's filled with foods that are ready to harm and kill them. And so I have to do it with love, and love takes action. Love is not passive. But love means that I'm respectful, I'm showing empathy, and I'm trying to tease them towards a state of well-being and understanding to implement change that will mount. Because if we can change them, and they become believers and advocates, all of a sudden, we've seen this in every instance, whether or not it's mammogram screening, whether or not it's colonoscopy screening. If the doctor is not a believer in it, he will not convey it to his patients. If I can make my cardiologists, my clinicians to feel like there is power in lifestyle, I may not do as I say, not as I do, I'm still winning because I'm getting them to tell the importance to patients. So long-winded answer as I've been doing the whole entire time, but I think it's just important to kind of understand.
So we've got 1 minute left. I'm going to throw in two quick questions,
All right.
or you're going to ask the quick questions, but we're going to ask for quick
Good.
answers. Okay, so in Selfish, you mentioned specific lifestyle changes for heart disease prevention. What is the most significant change that someone can make without going into too much detail? And then the last thing is, what gives you hope with the work that you're doing and what you're seeing in response?
Yeah, I'll say the single most powerful change that person can make is, I will say, is still nutrition. Is the most because I think it impacts the entire scope that's there, and that we can, from a culture, be able to apply it to whatever our cultural eating pattern is. So that's that one. I think the second scenario, as it relates to what gives me hope, I'll take events like this. The fact that there is a receptiveness for hearing about it. There is this hunger, this thirst, that there is something that we are not providing in healthcare that needs to be provided, and that communities at large are really demanding it. That we're saying we want to be healthy, that we should not, this should be life, liberty, and the pursuit of health, that we should all be able to pursue health, a healthy lifestyle, a healthy well-being that gives us vitality and we can live a life of purpose. So it gives me hope. It gives me hope when I hear one word of affirmation. I'm not looking for a throng of 1,000 people, but every time I get someone saying, I appreciate the work you're doing, I appreciate the message, I appreciate the conference you put on, I appreciate this, it means more than you think. They're not just like glossy words. It actually does, I actually take it to heart. Now, I'll be honest, and I'm gonna stop here. I do ignore the negative stuff because I don't read it. Most people are never going to come up and say something negative to me. And I don't read any subsequent posts if I put something out there on social media, just so I'm not reading anything negative because I don't need to have that in my head. That's not what this is for. Once again, just like giving a talk, do I feel it resonates? Is it something that would help me? I'm putting it out there into space.
Great, and it's a good strategy. So, with that, I'd like to thank you, Dr. Batiste. It was a great presentation, a lot of really wonderful information shared. If we could unmute the audience so they can share their appreciation for the doctor.
Thank
Thank you,
you,
Batiste.
appreciate it.
God bless.
Thank you so much for your help, your information.